Reactions. Five Steps to Catch a Killer by HylianFae. Have you ever wanted to avoid being the victim of a knife-wielding menace? Are you worried that you might be Jigsaw's next puzzle piece? Can you hear a chainsaw approaching in the distance? Is the machete missing from the garage? Do you feel like your end is here? If you've answered yes to any of the above questions, you may benefit from this in-depth guide to catching murderers. Yes, you read it right. I'm gonna tell you exactly how to catch a killer before they catch you. I'll use some examples from my most recent successful catch, and you'll see how simple it can be to be your own hero. Step 1. Pick a target. What I like to begin with is research. This is such an important stage in any sort of activity where you're trying to find a specific target. I checked local media outlets. This means newspapers, news channels, and news websites. They are all valuable when it comes to locating dangerous persons in your area, and they will often provide a physical description of the suspect, and possibly even a name of the person which the police are currently seeking out. They will likely advise you to avoid the person of interest and contact the police. But we don't need to adhere to that. On this specific day, there were several persons of interest within a moderate distance. And don't worry if this happens to you. You don't have to choose just one. Sometimes the victims of the killers have overlapping traits or features, which means you could potentially attract more than one. The multiple murderer phenomenon, MMP, can also be beneficial to you. If you don't attract one, then you might attract one of the others. After discovering that I had an MMP on my hands, it made the next stage even more interesting. Step 2. Learn about the victims. During this step, I used most of the same sources as I did to find the killer. The media will almost always give a description of the victims, what type of person they were, what they did, and what they looked like. You'll want to pay special attention to the type of victim which your killer prefers. You'll also want to take note of the areas they frequent, where they were abducted/murdered, and the types of people they may have been with. Were they alone? Were they coaxed out of the group by a familiar face? Were they intoxicated? Was the area isolated or crowded? These are all important factors that you'll need to take into account. I figured out that several suspects in my area were picking up brunettes in their mid-20s. The time frame on average was between 1 a.m. and 3 a.m. Most of the victims, regardless of the suspect, were leaving bars alone on Friday or Saturday evenings. This heightened the pleasure of having an MMP. I was even more likely to catch a killer when the visual aspects of the victims were conveyed by more than one murderer. You might even think that such a perfect MMP makes the task too easy. But it's always interesting to see which murderer takes your bait first. Step 3. Embody the victims. I dyed my hair soft brown and took my victim research to the next level. If the media gives names, use them. Find the social media accounts of the victims. Learn their style and general behavior based on their posts. Practice, and then practice some more. You want to be as close a match to the typical victims as you can. You need to make yourself a target. With a bit of skill in the art of makeup and disguise, you can even emulate the common facial features of the other victims. It's basically like creating a new identity. A few hours in the mirror and I was ready to score my closet. I got a plethora of different styles of clothing, which is definite must when you're trying to portray a certain type of person. Slinky bar clothes hugged my curves, and when I looked in the mirror it was like I was a different person. The perfect victim for at least one of the unsavory types who would be lurking the streets that night. I started to get excited. Who knew which murderer would come after me first? Step 4. Make a game plan. Decide where you're going to go, who you'll be with, and what you'll need for protection. You'll want to pick a place that is right inside the usual area where the suspect takes their victims, and a place where the other victims would have gone. In my case, it was a seedy bar. I'd suggest not bringing friends unless they are into this sort of thing too. I find that partners usually complicate things and can give away your cover. What I like to do is blend into a group of average party girls. Most of the time, they either don't care or don't realize they have a tag-along. It makes the group much easier to bail on when the time comes to find your killer, and nearly guarantees that no one will come looking for you and scare off your target. Now, don't forget to bring a weapon. You don't want a killer to overpower you and end up actually murdering you. A camera is also recommended. You'll want some evidence of what goes down. It didn't take too long for these steps to work in my favor. I had a few drinks, comfortable and loose, but not enough to cloud my mind. But acting like I had over a dozen. A nice fake stumble out the side door and into the dark alley, and soon I was followed by a man who had been leering at me all night. Step 5. Catch the killer. This part is open to interpretation, but there is really only one successful way to get this done without ending up dead. Your method may be varied depending on the killer, their advantages over you, which weapon they wield, or how exposed the area is. This part is why planning a good location and doing your research is so very important. You do not want to die during this, okay? Have your phone at the ready. You'll need to be able to make a phone call quick. If you brought a camera, it better be already recording. My camera was on, my phone was easily available, and the sleaze bag sauntered over to me.
Hey lady, you're out awful late.
His words were slurred, but his eyes held a telltale glint. I suppose I am. So? I smiled innocently, still fiending for the intoxication. His hand went into his pocket, and within mere seconds they were gleaming flash of silver whipping through the air. A grunt from each of us as the weapon slid home. He looked surprised as he sunk to the ground and the gun fell out of his hand. I stabbed him a few more times in the gut for good measure, and gave him another sweet smile. Too slow. I pulled out my phone and called my brother. Hey Tommy, I got another one for Dad to work on. Get the car. I'm at the planned location. What? No, I'm pretty sure this one is actually guilty this time. Results may vary. Resulting victims is not guaranteed to be a murderer. We are not responsible for the death of innocent persons who happen to be attracted by the bait.